Okay, so let's talk about a security issue inside of the hosting a VPS option. We can see now that I've got my VPS up and running. If you don't know how to do this, I've got a separate tutorial on a different video that shows you how to do it. Now, if we want to go ahead and use our instance, we'll click Open. And you can see that what this is basically doing is taking us to an IP address, but this IP address is exposed to the internet. Now, I know it's not the end of the world because it does require a password access, but there's still a list of potential issues here. One of them is that there's a one-click vulnerability issue that can trick a browser into revealing the gateway token. Most importantly, if you look up here, you can see there's no HTTPS, so even if you're not technical, you probably know that that's a problem. And that also means that anything that's a publicly exposed port like this is going to get hit pretty heavily by brute force bots. Okay, so one way to deal with this is to just use the firewall from Hostinger. So you'll just go to Security and click Firewall, and we'll click Add Firewall. Let's give the firewall a name. Alright, edit. So now let's add a firewall rule. So we want accept to be left as accept, and protocol will go with TCP. Port 22, I'll come back to that in a second, and then source will say anywhere. Okay, so if we go back to this instance and I click refresh, it's still visible, so that actually does not work. So, and that's because Docker is set up to penetrate the firewalls. So in that case, let's tell Docker to only expose our instance. Okay, so what we need to do is update the YML file. So the first thing I did is just navigate to the file, and I've used nano to open up the YML file. So let's just do that again now. So what we're doing here is binding it to our local host. So this number is the port that I was given by Hostinger, and this is to bind it to our local host. So then you'll save all of that. Okay, then the next step is that you'll just run docker compose up to restart. And then you want to verify that it's now private. So you'll just run docker ps, and you can see that it's just confirming the changes that we've made. And now, if I go back to Hostinger, go back to Docker, projects. Now if I click this open, you can see that nothing's showing up. Still taking some time to think about it, but this is eventually going to fail. So now this is no longer exposed to the internet. So now it's not exposed to the internet, that problem's solved. Of course, the next question now is, well, okay, so how do we use it? Alright, so let's open up a new terminal, but this time we want to be able to run commands from our computer, as opposed to the previous terminal where we obviously SSH'd our way into the VPS. Alright, so we're going to run this command now, and then let's enter the password. Okay, so that looks like it worked. Okay, now what I should be able to do is to go to localhost, and there it is, localhost 63026, and now I can access it locally. So let's just make sure it works. Let's get the gateway token, go back to this, log in, and there it is. Okay, so in order to complete the pairing, let's go ahead and enter this command that will just list the devices. You've got a paired device here that's done, so I've already done this once obviously, but this is the pending device. So this is the ID that we need. So now we need to enter almost the same command again, but remove the list and replace it with approve. And then we need to enter not this existing ID if you have one. You need to enter this one here, because that's the one that you want to get approved. Alright, let's hit enter, and you can see it's been approved. And now if I just remove this, you can see that this screen has automatically refreshed and the alert about the pairing requirement has been resolved. Now I've been getting requests from people that need assistance to set it up. We do offer a setup service. If that's something of interest to you, check out the links in the description.